The women of the Veyari were tall, elegant, and sharp-tongued. They loved displays of wealth, long speeches filled with hidden meanings, and endless games of power. From the time she was young, Lyra had been trained to walk with her chin lifted, high, to speak in a way that cut like a blade, and to measure every glance in the great halls of the city. But Lyra's heart often moved in another direction. Where others enjoyed the noise of politics, she found herself curious about quiet things. She loved walking alone in the gardens at dusk, listening to the wind and the silver leaves. She preferred listening to arguing, and when the humans arrived in their fragile ships, she was the first of her people who felt no urge to mock them. Humans were small compared to the Veyari. Their bones were softer, their muscles less defined. Their voices were low and their ways seemed clumsy. Many Veyari whispered that the humans had survived only by chance, that they were a weak species who would never leave much mark upon the stars. But Lyra had not believed that. Among the humans who visited her world was one named Daniel. He was not loud. He was not decorated with medals or known for bold actions. He did not fight for attention in the council chambers. He stood to the side, watching, and when he spoke, his words were short and simple. Many Veyari ignored him, as if he were only a shadow in the corner. Lyra did not ignore him. She noticed the way his eyes followed every movement in the room, as if he was quietly measuring each person. She noticed how he carried himself. Not proud, not bent, but steady, as if rooted in something deeper than pride. She noticed how he treated the servants and the workers, speaking to them as equals. And when he laughed, it was soft but warm, the kind of laugh that could melt the hardest mood. When Lyra chose him as her husband, the entire city was shocked. Her sisters whispered behind their hands. "She has married beneath her station," they said. "A quiet human? What use is he? He has no title, no power, no army. He cannot protect her. He cannot give her children of strong blood." Her father had looked at her with disappointment, though he said nothing in public. In private, he had asked her, "Why him? You could have chosen from the great houses. You could have joined yourself to power. Why waste your life on this fragile being?" Lyra had only answered, "Because I see something you do not." And so, she had married Daniel. At first their life together was gentle. Daniel was not like the men of the Veyari, who were always speaking, always trying to outdo one another. He was quiet in the mornings, sitting with his tea and reading from old human books. He was patient when Lyra returned from long meetings, listening to her words, never rushing her, never judging. Sometimes he would share small stories of Earth, about the oceans that stretched farther than sight, about forests where one could walk for days, about mountains that rose like the backs of ancient beasts. To Lyra, these stories felt like treasures. They were simple, yet full of a strange strength. Still, the whispers in the city grew louder. "Have you seen them?" some would say at gatherings. "She walks with him in the market, but he does not speak. He is always behind her, like a servant. He never joins the contests," others would say. "Our men fight in the arenas to prove themselves, but this human does nothing. Does he fear to show himself?" And the cruelest whispers came from her own cousins. She wanted a husband who would never argue with her. She chose a silent shadow. Lyra pretended not to hear, but sometimes at night, when the halls were empty and quiet, she would turn to Daniel and ask softly, "Do you regret marrying me? Do you feel the stares?" Daniel would only smile, that quiet smile of his, the one that carried no anger, only calm. "I regret nothing," he would say. "Let them speak. Words are only wind. What matters is what we hold in our hearts." And Lyra would feel the calm settle in her, stronger than any armor. Life went on this way for a year. Lyra carried her duties in the council halls, and Daniel walked beside her when she wished, or waited when she asked. He never forced himself into her world, but he was always there, steady as the ground beneath her feet. Yet even Lyra could feel the pressure of society. The Veyari valued power and display above all things. Every season brought great gatherings where families showed Their strength. Warriors carried shining blades crafted from rare metals. Nobles boasted of their victories in trade, politics, and conquest. And always, Daniel remained silent. At one such gathering, Lyra stood with him among the high pillars of the festival hall. Music echoed through the air, bright and sharp. The nobles wore gowns of shifting colors and armor inlaid with gems. They showed their power in every step, every gesture. Lyra could feel the eyes upon them. She could hear the whispers again, soft but cruel. There she is with her quiet human. He holds no blade. He wears no crest. He is nothing. Perhaps he is only a decoration she keeps by her side. Daniel heard the whispers too. Lyra saw his head turn slightly, his eyes calm but watchful. He said nothing as always. But for the first time, Lyra felt something stir in him, as if a quiet storm was waiting just beneath the surface. That night, as they returned home, Lyra spoke carefully. "Daniel," she said, "do you ever wish to prove them wrong?" He looked at her, his eyes gentle, yet carrying a weight she could not fully name. "Proof," he said softly, "is for those who doubt themselves. I have no need of it." "But they think you are weak," Lyra said. "They think you are nothing." He reached out and took her hand, holding it with quiet strength. "Let them," he said. "They see only what they understand. When the time comes, they will learn." Lyra did not fully understand his words then, but she felt a chill, not of fear, but of mystery. Her quiet husband, the man whom everyone dismissed, carried something hidden within him, something waiting. The Festival of Blades was the grandest event of the season. Every year, the high houses of the Veyari gathered in the capital to display their power. The halls of the festival tower were vast and bright, built from stone that glowed softly like captured starlight. Banners of every color hung from the high arches, each one marked with the crest of a great family. The festival was not only about music and food. It was a stage where each house displayed its strength. Warriors carried their finest blades, polished until they shone like mirrors. Artisans revealed rare metals shaped into weapons that were more art than tools. Duels were fought in the wide ring at the center of the hall, not battles to the death but contests of skill, where the clang of steel was meant to prove one family's pride over another. Lyra had attended this festival every year since childhood. She remembered how her father once stood tall in the ring, defeating rivals with elegant moves. She remembered her sisters boasting about their chosen champions, laughing when their opponents faltered. But this year was different. This year she came with Daniel. The whispers began the moment they entered the great hall. Lyra felt the eyes upon them, sharp as knives. Her gown was silver, woven with light, and Daniel walked beside her in simple clothes of dark fabric. He wore no crest. He carried no weapon. To the Veyari, he looked like a shadow following his wife. "There she is," someone murmured nearby. "Bamidi, human husband. He has no blade. Does he even know what this festival means?" Lyra kept her chin high, ignoring them, but the words pricked at her like thorns. She glanced at Daniel, wondering if he heard. His face was calm as ever, his steps steady. He seemed untouched by the noise around them. The hall grew louder as the contest began. One warrior struck sparks with his sword, boasting of the rare crystal from which it was forged. Another swung a blade so heavy that the ground shook when it struck. Crowds cheered, clapping in rhythm. The air was thick with pride and noise. Daniel stood quietly at Lyra's side, watching. His eyes followed each fighter, but his expression never changed. After a time, Lyra's cousin approached. Veyari women were tall and elegant, and this cousin, Solara, was the tallest of them all. Her armor was covered with bright gems, and at her side hung a blade of silver-blue alloy. Her smile was sweet, but her words were sharp. "Lyra," Solara said, bowing slightly. "How good to see you. And this must be your husband." Her eyes flicked to Daniel, studying him like one might study a dull stone on the ground. "Yes," Lyra said evenly. "This is Daniel." Solara's smile widened. "A quiet one, isn't he? Does he speak or only follow? Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to speak sharply, but before she could, Daniel gave a small nod. His voice was calm and polite. I speak, he said softly. Solara tilted her head, pretending to be impressed. Ah, but do you fight human? Do you carry no blade, even to a festival of blades? Here a man without a weapon is like a bird without wings. Daniel looked at her for a moment, then he said, I carry no weapon tonight. The answer was simple, but Solara laughed as though it were a joke. How strange. Perhaps Earth has no steel. Perhaps your people have never held a sword. Lyra's hand curled into a fist at her side. That is enough, she said sharply. Solara only bowed again, still smiling. Of course, cousin. Enjoy the festival. I hope your companion finds it entertaining. She walked away, her laughter trailing behind her. The duels continued, each one louder than the last. Two warriors clashed blades, sending sparks flying. Another pair spun so quickly their movements blurred. Each victory brought cheers. Each defeat brought gasps. Daniel remained silent. He watched everything, his hands folded calmly behind his back. Lyra kept glancing at him, her heart unsettled. Did he feel ashamed? Did he feel small standing in a hall where everyone else carried shining steel? At last, Lyra could not hold her question. Daniel, she whispered, why do you never show them? Why do you never prove yourself? He looked at her with steady eyes. What should I prove? That you are not weak, she said. Her voice was low, urgent. That you are more than they say. He tilted his head slightly as though considering. Do their words wound you, Lyra? She hesitated. They wound us both. Daniel was silent for a moment. Then he said, if strength must be shown every hour, then it is not true strength. It is fear. Lyra blinked, unsure how to answer. His words were quiet, but they seemed heavier than all the cheers in the hall. Later that evening, a challenge was announced. The duel ring was opened for anyone brave enough to step inside. Nobles cheered for their champions. Warriors stepped forward, eager to show their skill. Solara, Lyra's cousin, entered the ring with her silver-blue blade. She raised it high, smiling at the crowd. Who dares face me? She called. No one moved at first. Solara was known for her speed, and few wished to be embarrassed before the high houses. Finally, a warrior from another house stepped forward. The duel was quick and fierce. Sparks danced, and in the end, Solara's blade touched her opponent's chest. The crowd roared with approval. Solara turned, her eyes sweeping the hall. Then her gaze fell on Daniel. And what of you, human? She called. Will you face me? Or do you hide in your wife's shadow? The hall grew silent. All eyes turned. Lyra's breath caught. Daniel did not move. He stood still, his face calm, his hands behind his back. For a long moment he simply looked at Solara. Then softly he said, No. Gasps spread through the hall. Some laughed, others sneered. Solara's smile widened, sharp as a knife. As I thought, she said, a man without a blade. Cheers and laughter rose again as Solara left the ring, her blade flashing in the light. The crowd returned to their noise, but the sting of the moment lingered for Lyra. She wanted to shout, to defend him, to silence the voices around them, but Daniel only stood quietly as if nothing had happened. When the night ended and they walked home beneath the stars, Lyra finally spoke. Why did you not fight her? She asked. Her voice shook slightly. Daniel walked beside her, his hands still clasped calmly. Because she did not fight for truth, she fought for show. But everyone believes you are weak, Lyra said. They believe you cannot stand. Daniel stopped walking. He turned to her, and for the first time, there was a spark in his eyes, not anger, not pride, but something deeper. They believe what they see, he said, and they see only noise and shine. One day, Lyra, they will see what lies beneath silence. But not tonight. Lyra stared at him, her heart racing. His voice was still quiet, but the weight of it was enough to shake her. The following morning, the Festival of Blades still echoed in Lyra's mind. The clanging of swords, the cheers of the crowd, and Solara's mocking words had not faded. Everywhere she looked, she saw reminders of the expectations her society had for men. Warriors who proved themselves through noise, display, and bloodless duels of skill. And everywhere she looked, she saw Daniel, calm and silent as though none of it touched him. Lyra could not understand it. She had watched him, walked beside him, spoken to him. She knew he carried a strength she could feel in his presence, yet the Veari could not see it. The whispers of weak human and silent shadow had followed them like dark clouds, and she felt their weight pressing down on her chest. "Why do they not see you?" she asked him as they walked through the quiet streets of the city, the light of twin suns casting long shadows on the cobblestones. Daniel's eyes were on the path ahead, calm as ever. "Because they look for the wrong signs." Lyra frowned. "The right signs? What signs do they need to see?" He paused and looked at her, his gaze steady and unflinching. "Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches. Sometimes it must be revealed at the right time." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. He had never spoken like this before, and yet his words carried a weight far greater than any boastful speech she had ever heard in the festival halls. That afternoon, a new challenge was announced in the grand ring of the festival tower. A rare demonstration was set. The high houses would present their finest weapons against a single test, a block of hardened Veari alloy, forged for toughness beyond any normal blade. The block was larger than a human could lift alone, and its surface was polished to a mirror shine. The challenge was simple in words, but impossible in reality. The blade that could split it in a single strike would earn unparalleled honor. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Some whispered that no weapon could accomplish the task. Others predicted that Solara would succeed easily. Daniel, of course, did not enter the competition. He did not hold a weapon, and he did not seek attention. Yet Lyra felt a strange pull in her chest, a sense that something had shifted. When Solara approached the block, she lifted her silver-blue blade high. The crowd leaned forward. With a swift motion, she struck the metal, but the blade bounced slightly, leaving only a scratch. The audience gasped. Solara raised her brow in disbelief. She struck again, harder, louder. Sparks flew, and the alloy block held firm. "This cannot be," she exclaimed, frustration creeping into her voice. The crowd murmured, astonished. Never had a blade failed in this challenge. Solara's fame had been built on flawless skill, but now her pride faltered. Lyra's eyes scanned the hall. All around, nobles whispered, murmured, and exchanged shocked glances. And then, as if sensing the moment, Daniel stepped forward. The murmurs grew louder. "Is the human going to try?" someone asked. "He has no blade," another said. "It will be a joke." Daniel carried something in his hands, a simple steel blade, straight and plain, with no gems, no engravings, no ornaments. It was unlike any weapon in the hall. In its simplicity, it looked almost fragile. Lyra's heart pounded. She could not speak. The crowd fell silent, curious at the audacity of this quiet human who dared approach the impossible. Daniel stopped in front of the alloy block. He did not raise his voice. He did not glare. He simply stood, holding the blade with both hands, his posture calm and steady. "Is this a joke?" Solara asked sharply, her eyes narrowing. Daniel shook his head. "No joke," he said softly. "This blade is not for show. It carries the memory of my people. We forged it for survival, not for pride. It may look simple, but it is tested by necessity." The crowd laughed at the idea. "Simple steel against this alloy? Impossible," one noble shouted, but Daniel only nodded once, his eyes on the block. He raised the blade high, and in a single, fluid motion, he struck. The sound was not loud. There was no flourish, but the alloy block split cleanly down the middle, almost as if it had bowed to the blade. A perfect straight line. The hall erupted in shock. The nobles gasped. Whispers grew into murmurs of disbelief. Solara's mouth fell open, and her hands trembled slightly on her hilt. Lyra's chest felt as though it would burst. She had known he was strong in a quiet way, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Daniel did not raise his voice. He did not boast. He simply stood, calm and steady, holding the plain steel blade in his hands. Then he spoke softly for all to hear. Power is not measured by decoration, it is measured by purpose. The blade you see here is tested by necessity, not by pride. My people learned survival when the odds were against us. That is strength. Silence followed his words. The Veyari were not used to such humility paired with effectiveness. Their society measured value in wealth, show, and ceremony. Yet here stood a human who had accomplished what many had thought impossible, and he had done it without arrogance, without theatrics, without cruelty. Some of the crowd whispered, almost afraid to speak. This is impossible. How can a human? Solara's face flushed. She had always believed herself unmatched. She had practiced her art for years, fought countless duels, and yet she had been bested in a single motion by a human who had never even appeared formidable. Lyra reached for Daniel's, hand squeezing it. You have shown them, she said softly. Daniel shook his head slightly. No, they see only what they are ready to see. The rest will come with time. The day ended, but the story of Daniel's strike spread quickly. Even in the quiet corners of the city, whispers reached ears that had not been present in the hall. The human who split the alloy block, people said. The human with the plain steel blade. Lyra noticed the change in how people looked at them. There were fewer mocking glances, fewer whispered doubts. Some faces showed curiosity, some almost respect. Yet Daniel remained quiet. He did not celebrate. He did not boast. He simply returned home with Lyra, walking beneath the fading light of the twin suns. At home, Lyra could not stop herself. You were magnificent, she said. Her voice was almost breathless. Everyone has seen it. They will not forget. Daniel set the blade down gently and looked at her. They may remember the action, he said softly, but they will not understand it yet. That comes later. Lyra frowned. Later? Do you mean you will show them more? He smiled faintly, the quiet smile that had first drawn her to him. Not show. Teach. Strength is not in display alone. It is in the heart, the mind, and the will. When they see these things, they will understand. Lyra felt a chill of awe. She had always known that Daniel was not ordinary. She had always felt that quiet power within him. But now she saw the beginning of it, the first ripple of change he could bring to a society that had underestimated him entirely. The morning after the Festival of Blades, the city was quiet in a way that felt different to Lyra. The sun rose over silver streets and towering crystal spires, painting them in gold and pale blue light. Merchants set up stalls, nobles walked along the promenades, and the city seemed ordinary at first glance. But Lyra could feel a shift. There was a tension in the air, a ripple that had not been there before. Daniel walked beside her, quiet as always. His steps were steady, his posture calm. Even after the remarkable act in the festival ring, he showed no pride. The plain steel blade rested in its sheath at his side, simple and unassuming. Yet everywhere they went, eyes followed him. Whispers had spread quickly, reaching even corners of the city where he had never been seen before. The human who split the alloy block, people murmured. The quiet human with the plain steel blade. The one who showed the impossible. Some of the whispers were admiring, some cautious, and others tinged with fear. Many had never considered that a human could do what Daniel had done. By midday, Lyra was summoned to a council meeting with the leaders of the high houses. Normally, Daniel would have remained outside, silent and still, but this time he accompanied her. The hall was bright and full of nobles, each seated on high chairs that gleamed with inlaid gems. Lyra noticed how many heads turned as she entered, how many eyes lingered on the quiet human by her side. Some faces were filled with curiosity, others with unease, and a few with unmistakable respect. One counselor, a tall figure named Varys, leaned forward. "Lyra of House Veyari," he said, formally, "we have heard much about your human husband. Many are intrigued by his actions at the festival." Lyra's heart raced. She glanced at Daniel, who stood quietly beside her, his hands clasped. He nodded slightly, acknowledging the room, but did not speak. Varys continued. "Few humans are known beyond their worlds. They are often dismissed as fragile, yet your husband performed what even the greatest of our warriors could not. We are uncertain how to interpret this." Lyra spoke before she could stop herself. "He does not perform for attention," she said firmly. "He does not need recognition to demonstrate his strength. What you saw in the hall is only a glimpse of what humans can do when necessity calls." A murmur ran through the council. Some leaned closer, curious. Others frowned, unsettled by her words. Daniel's voice finally broke the silence, soft and even. "Strength is not decoration," he said. "It is built over time, through endurance, learning, and care for one another. My people survive not by pride alone, but by being prepared for what others cannot imagine." The council fell silent. Some members exchanged uneasy glances. Others simply stared, trying to reconcile their assumptions with the truth before them. After the meeting, Lyra and Daniel walked through the city gardens, where the sunlight filtered through silver-leaved trees. "Did you see them?" Lyra asked, still catching her breath. "They were stunned. Some were afraid, I think. Others, they are starting to respect you." Daniel shook his head slightly. "It is not respect yet," he said. "It is understanding beginning. That is different. Respect comes when they see the world as it truly is, not as they imagine it. What they saw yesterday is only the start." Lyra frowned. "You make it sound like a lesson, not an achievement." "Perhaps it is both," he said, his eyes calm and thoughtful. "Actions matter, but understanding matters more. A moment of awe is nothing if it fades. Real change comes when what you have shown becomes a part of their thinking." Lyra was silent for a moment, realizing how much Daniel's words carried. The quiet human she had married, the man others dismissed as weak, was already shaping the world around them with nothing but calm strength and reason. That evening, a smaller gathering was called in the central plaza. A few of the nobles who had witnessed Daniel's act at the festival came forward, cautiously to speak with him. One was a young warrior named Kalen, known for his speed and skill in dueling. He approached Daniel with a slight bow. "I have seen your strike," Kalen said. "I do not understand it. How could such a simple blade do what our greatest weapons could not?" Daniel looked at him calmly. "Because a blade is only as strong as the hand and mind that wields it," he said. "It is not decoration or ceremony that makes it effective. It is knowledge, practice, and understanding of what must be done." Kalen nodded slowly. "You speak truth," he said quietly. "I had never thought of a weapon this way." Another noble, a counselor named Mira, stepped forward. "If humans are so capable, why have they remained quiet in the galaxy?" she asked. "Why have they not claimed power like other species?" Daniel considered her question. "Our ways are different. We value life and learning over show and dominance. We build alliances, solve problems, and endure challenges that others might call small. You see only the noise of your festivals and councils. You do not see the hours, the care, the endurance that build real power." Mira looked at him, slowly understanding. "So, you are teaching us something?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Not teaching, showing. The rest comes from choice." Word of Daniel's calm strength spread quickly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. By the next day, even nobles who had not been present at the festival were whispering about him. The stories were simple, repeated in every corner. The human who split the alloy block, the one who does not boast, the one who shows strength without pride. Some Veyari began to approach him, curious. eager to see for themselves what this human could do. They asked questions not to challenge him, but to understand. Some tried small demonstrations of skill or agility, and Daniel answered quietly, teaching with his actions rather than words. Lyra watched all of it, her heart full. She had always known Daniel was remarkable, but now she saw the ripple effect he had on her society. The whispers that had once mocked him were fading. Curiosity, admiration, and even humility were beginning to take their place. That night, as the city lights shimmered on the silver streets, Lyra and Daniel walked home together. "Do you see it?" Lyra asked softly. "They are changing. Even the ones who mocked you yesterday are thinking differently now." Daniel nodded. "Some are beginning to see," he said. "Others will follow in time. Strength is patient, Lyra. It waits. It does not demand recognition, but it shapes the world quietly, steadily." Lyra reached for his hand, squeezing it. "You are more than I ever imagined." He looked at her, his quiet smile steady and calm. "And you are the one who saw it first," he said. "The one who believed it even when others did not." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She realized something then. It was not just Daniel's strength that was changing the world. It was the way people looked at him, and the way she had chosen to believe in him when no one else did. As they walked through the quiet streets, Lyra understood that the Festival of Blades had been more than a display of weapons. It had been a lesson in patience and quiet power, and in the kind of strength that could not be measured by gems or steel. The days after the Festival of Blades were not the same. Even the streets of the city, lined with silver spires and golden banners, seemed quieter in a way that felt charged with attention. Every step Lyra and Daniel took was noted by someone, noble, merchant, or servant. Whispers followed them, though now they were different. Words once filled with mockery had softened into curiosity, admiration, and cautious respect. For Lyra, it was strange and thrilling. She had always known Daniel carried strength in ways her people could not immediately understand, but now the ripple of that strength was spreading further than she had imagined. Daniel, however, remained calm and quiet. He walked beside her each morning, observed the world with careful eyes, and spoke only when necessary. He did not seek attention. He did not demand praise. And yet, his presence shaped the people around him in subtle, profound ways. At the council hall, news of his actions at the festival had reached the most distant houses. Nobles who had never met Lyra or Daniel approached them, not with weapons or arrogance, but with questions, seeking insight. One young noble, a girl named Taryn, approached Daniel with a small, ornate blade. "I have practiced for years," she said quietly, "but I cannot split the alloy block as you did. Can you show me?" Daniel smiled faintly. "It is not about the blade," he said. "It is about understanding, preparation, and the mind behind the hand. Focus on purpose, not pride." He demonstrated slowly, carefully, and Taryn followed his movements with attention. She tried again and again, her strikes improving each time. By the end, she was still not perfect, but she had achieved more than she ever thought possible. Lyra watched, amazed. Daniel did not simply perform feats of strength. He inspired others to discover their own capabilities, and that, she realized, was a power far greater than the one Solara had shown at the festival. In the marketplace, the change was also evident. Merchants spoke differently about humans now. Travelers shared the story of Daniel's quiet skill, of the plain steel blade that split impossible metal, and the calm, unassuming man who had done it. "You saw the human at the festival?" one merchant asked another. "He carried no decoration, no gems. And yet, he has the strength of the greatest warriors." "Not just strength," the other replied. "He has control, patience, and understanding. That is what makes him different." Even the children of the city watched him with fascination. They imitated his movements in small ways, practicing quietly with sticks and wooden blades. Where, Once they had admired only flashy displays and daring duels, they now sought to learn endurance, focus, and skill. Lyra and Daniel attended another council meeting, this time with more of the high houses represented. The atmosphere was tense at first, but gradually the attention shifted. People were no longer mocking or dismissive, they listened. They asked questions. Ferris, the tall counselor who had first spoken to them after the festival, leaned forward. "Your presence, Daniel," he said slowly, "has changed how we see humans. Many of us assumed you were weak, fragile, and unworthy. Yet the events at the festival, and your calm approach afterward, have taught us a lesson we did not expect." Daniel inclined his head. "I am not here to teach or judge," he said. "I am here to show what is possible when care, practice, and understanding are valued. Strength is not always loud, nor is it always immediate. It grows quietly, steadily, and it lasts." Murmurs filled the room. Some nodded thoughtfully. Others remained uncertain, but the seed of understanding had been planted. By the evening, Daniel's quiet reputation had reached Solara. She had always been proud of her skill and status, but now she found herself questioning everything she believed. When she approached Lyra privately, her voice was less sharp than before. "Your husband," she said slowly. I did not understand. I thought humans were weak. I thought the quiet ones could not compete. But he shows strength in ways I never imagined." Lyra smiled gently. "He does not seek to compete, Solara. He only acts when it is needed." Solara's eyes softened. "Perhaps I have much to learn." "Yes," Lyra said quietly. "And so do we all. Strength is more than the flash of a blade or the shine of metal. It is patience, endurance, and knowing what matters." The next day, a meeting was called among the younger nobles. They had been inspired by Daniel's actions, and now they wished to see him again. A small practice ground had been set up outside the city, and Daniel stood at its center. One by one, young nobles approached with blades, sticks, and makeshift weapons. He guided them patiently, showing the difference between a motion done for show and one done with understanding. He corrected stances, demonstrated precision, and shared small lessons about focus and balance. He did not raise his voice. He did not boast. And yet, by the end of the day, the entire group had improved in ways they had never imagined. Lyra watched, her heart full. He was quiet, gentle, unassuming, and yet his influence was reshaping the very foundation of their society. Children, nobles, and even adults were beginning to measure strength in new ways. News spread across the high houses. Other species who had visited the city during the festival began to speak differently about humans. Reports reached distant worlds. Humans were patient, resilient, and clever. They were capable of strength that did not rely on display or arrogance. Some leaders sent emissaries to learn more. Some quietly observed, hoping to understand what Daniel had shown, that quiet humans could accomplish the impossible, that they could inspire without noise, that their calm strength carried weight in ways that many other species could not imagine. Lyra realized that Daniel had done something remarkable. He had changed not only the perception of humans in her world, but also the understanding of what strength truly meant. That night, under the twin moons, Lyra and Daniel walked through the gardens near their home. The silver leaves shimmered in. The pale light in the air was filled with the gentle hum of evening life. Lyra reached for Daniel's hand. "Look at them," she said softly. "They are thinking differently now. They are learning. And it is because of you." Daniel shook his head gently. "It is not because of me," he said. "It is because they chose to see differently. All I did was show them what was possible. The rest is theirs to understand." Lyra smiled. "Still, you are extraordinary. You changed everything." He smiled faintly, that calm, quiet smile she had loved from the first. "Sometimes," he said, "change comes not with loud acts but with quiet demonstration. The world shifts when those who are ready see what they could not before." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She understood then that Daniel's quiet strength was not just about skill or knowledge. It was about patience, humility, and timing. It was about showing the truth without forcing it, about allowing others to see and learn in their own way. The city had changed. The nobles, the children, the citizens, all were beginning to see strength differently, and the ripple would spread far beyond their world. Months passed, and the story of Daniel, the quiet human who split the alloy block and taught a society patience and understanding, became legend. Nobles spoke of him with respect. Children imitated his movements and his calm demeanor. Even rivals began to consider humans differently, understanding that what was quiet and simple could be as powerful as what was loud and ornate. Lyra often watched him, quietly proud. She remembered the whispers of doubt that had followed them when they first married. She remembered Solara's laughter, the mocking comments, the doubts of the high houses. And now, all of it had changed. Daniel remained the same man he had always been, quiet, patient, and steady. But in his presence, the world had shifted. He had shown that true strength was not in pride, not in spectacle, and not in noise. True strength was resilience, understanding, and the courage to act when it mattered most.